What up? Welcome to another episode or edition of the AfterBuzz. I'm your host, Brandon Coates. Welcome. Happy Wednesday to everybody. As you can see, I'm Rip City and out today because I'm pretty happy that the Blazers made it past the Thunder in the first round of the playoffs, but we'll get to that here in just a minute. And but really quickly, make sure you're subscribing, you're liking the video. For the love of God, just hit the thumbs up button. Really doesn't take that much. And then also be sure that you're hitting that little bell so you can get the notifications for when we go live. And it will also give you the notifications for when we upload videos to the YouTube chat. So anyway, welcome to the AfterBuzz. And another quick plug here. We do have Rockstar 101. I think episode 10 is now up, and that's available on Spotify, iTunes, Google Podcasts, anywhere where you get podcasts. Rockstar 101 is available there. This is the third episode of 4 that we recorded when Shim was here in El Paso over in the studio. And we had him and the whole band in. The first episode that we did with the band, we kind of got to meet them. Second episode was the whole debate between the Dirt and Bohemian Rhapsody. And then the third episode is when we really get into some of the stories from the road. One of the stories was they had this dude who ran one of the Airbnbs they stayed at. And this guy, if you've never seen Big Mouth on Netflix, just look up Coach Steve Big Mouth because that's what this dude looked like. Apparently he sounded like him too, and it was just too damn funny. So we got that episode, and then the very next episode, which should be going up this week, that'll be the final one of the whole group when we had the whole band in, and we were. That's when you get the cockroach story, where there was a bartender, I guess, somewhere where she went to put her ponytail, her hair up in a ponytail, and a goddamn cockroach crawled out of her hair and then just scurried away, and it was like nothing happened. So pay attention to that one. Cobra Commander is asking, is there going to be Game of Thrones talk today? You know what? I forgot to tell producer Dave because we kind of go through what we're going to talk about stuff, but we could get into that really quickly right now. I don't want to get into too much of it, but before we get into the main topics, absolutely we can talk a little Game of Thrones here. Spoiler alerts, if you haven't watched up through this final episode and you don't want the spoilers, go ahead and turn it off now. It's perfectly fine. I'm not going to hate you for it. But I thought this last episode was really good on Sunday. I loved the episode. I thoroughly enjoyed, especially, I was about to say the scene where they're in front of the fire, but man, I also loved the Hound and Beric Dondarrion up on top of the wall there, and Arya comes up to him. I just thought that was a great episode. But like I said on the air earlier this week, if they had done an episode like that in season 2 or season 3, I'd be like, okay, this is boring. The reason I liked it is we've now spent, over 7 seasons with these characters. And they've all been on different parts of the world at different times. And now here they all are facing this one common enemy that's, going to attack them. And I love what Tyrion said. At one point, most of us here, as we talk about around the fire, we all were fighting at war with the Starks, and now here we are defending Winterfell with them. I just thought that really summed up that episode for me. I thought the scenes with the Hound were hilarious. Tormund Giantsbane is just, that guy's a riot. When they're first rolling up, and he's like, "Is the big girl still here?" or whatever he said about Brienne of Tarth, and then the whole Giant's Milk thing when he starts, they're like, "Hey, do you want a drink?" He's like, "I brought my own," and it's filled with it's milk of something, and he just starts slamming it, and it's just pouring all down his beard. Everybody else in the room's like, what the hell's this guy doing? It was great. It was hilarious. Absolutely loved the scene. But one thing, a theory, Lisa brought this up in our pre-show meeting today, or it might have been post-show meeting yesterday, and I don't think we've brought it up on the air yet, but there are rumors that the Night King actually isn't at Winterfell. He has sent his army there, but he's going to skirt around while the battle happens, and he's going to completely skip past everybody and make his way to King's Landing. So that would definitely be interesting. Just that whole kind of aspect. The little girl on there had bigger balls than most of the men do. Yeah,
I love her.
Lyanna Mormont. When they were trying, she's like, no, she's like, I'm gonna fight. When she's got her uncle Jorah, he's telling her hey, go down to the crypt. which again, that's something we've talked about on the show. The crypts could become the least safe place because it was very ominous how many times they kept saying you're going to go to the crypts where it's the safest place to go, and for all we know, that's where like all hell can break loose. But yeah, so yeah, Game of Thrones, loved it. Really looking forward to this week's episode. And something that I kind of realized yesterday is that I saw a post out there about how this Sunday's episode, it's just a battle. It's the whole battle for this whole episode, and it's going to be nuts. So I'm telling you folks, nerds of the world, we are in for a really rough few days here.
Yes,
Because tomorrow, at least tomorrow for me, other people over the weekend, we've got Avengers Endgame, which is apparently very emotional to watch. 3 full hours with almost no pee breaks in there. Like there's like barely any places you can actually, use the facilities. And then coming up on Sunday night, we get Game of Thrones that's supposed to be crazy intense as well. So just be prepared, nerds of the world. We're in for a difficult one here for this weekend. But anyway, so now kind of really all the Game of Thrones stuff I want to get to. We can get into more next week though when we because I got a feeling this is going to be the episode where people finally start to die. We've really only had the one kid die, Lord Umber, that kid they sent away in episode 1. Other than that, nobody else has died. So our death draft has kind of been null and void at this point. But there's probably going to be a ton to talk about coming up next week. So to the first thing, as you can tell, I am all blazered out. I not only have this on, but underneath is a Blazers t-shirt, but my microphone's here, and I don't want to fuck with the microphone. But man, like I told you, I think I need to keep being pessimistic about this Blazers team because if you remember a couple weeks ago when this series started, I even said it on the air. The Blazers locked up the number 3 spot in the playoffs just to get swept out of the playoffs by the Oklahoma City Thunder. And I legitimately thought that. During the regular season, the Thunder owned the Blazers. They swept them the entire regular season. But this Blazer team is a vastly different Blazer team. And what makes it most interesting for me is that when it comes to the NBA playoffs, you don't get a whole lot of surprises, which kind of makes the NHL playoffs better because you had like the Lightning go out in the first round, and they were swept in the first round. You had 2 Game 7s last night. You had the Bruins advancing. You had the Sharks advancing. NHL is awesome. Not to take anything away from the NBA, but it pretty much goes to the status quo. Like if the Lightning losing, if something like that had happened in the NBA, that's all we'd be talking about. Like if a number 1 seed fell to a number 8 seed, that's all we would be talking about. It has happened in the NBA before. I remember when it happened to the Sonics, to the Denver Nuggets back in the 90s. Like that was a big deal. And that was back when it was a 5-game series, not a full 7-game series. It was best of 5 back then. At least I think it was. But anyway, but what's different about these NBA playoffs, because like at least as a Blazer fan, I've lived my life in constant disappointment. I wasn't alive for the one championship that they got in 1977. I got to see that really early run of amazing Blazer teams with Clyde Drexler, Jerome Kersey, Terry Porter, Kevin Duckworth. Who am I missing on that starting team? Porter, Drexler, Kersey, Buck Williams. Danny Young, Danny Ainge, like just the whole list of guys, Cliff Robinson, some really good teams. And Charles Barkley's even said, he thinks that Blazers team back then that didn't win the championship was arguably the best team to never win a championship. Like that was a stacked team. That was a really good team. But I've kind of continued, just being disappointed. They had the late 90s where we had the jail Blazers, where it was Bob Whitsitt just kind of putting whatever talent he could out there. And there was good talent out there, but, you had guys like Rape and Ruben Patterson out on the court. And Rasheed Wallace, who's, just known for being just a, jackass. But then the 2000s came, and it was like, okay, so we need to reestablish this image. The Portland Trailblazers don't have a really great relationship with the community in Portland. They're very finicky about things. I remember Paul Allen, who just recently passed away, he bought up a couple of radio stations. So he owned 2 radio stations and the Blazers at the same time. And man, if you worked for one of those radio stations, you were not allowed to say anything bad about the Blazers, like at all. I mean, that was a massive, massive no-no. And they were very protective of the team, and they were just the Blazers kind of came off as dicks. But more recently, especially with a guy like Damian Lillard, that attitude has kind of shifted, and that persona in the community has shifted. They still don't have the best of relationships as far as I can tell. At least that's from what I'm hearing. but you're always going to have the city backing them. I mean, that's the one. I mean, outside of the Timbers now, that's the major sports team that you have in the city of Portland. Although that's apparently might change because there's a major push for baseball to end up in Portland here in the next couple of years. They're talking about possibly the Rays or the Athletics ending up in Portland. Um, but I'm telling you right now, like if you aren't privy to Damian Lillard and just how good this dude is, just go look at his highlights. There have been only two series-ending buzzer beaters in the past 22 years. He's got both. He did it to the Rockets back in, I think it was 2014, which I don't think that play was even called for him. They were down by 2. That was game 6. If they lose that game, they have to go back to Houston for game 7. And most people were thinking if they go back to Houston, they're not going to win this series. And if you watch that replay, he starts on the right side of the court, runs around the three-point line, and he's just insanely clapping his hands because I don't think that play was designed for him, but he was able to break off of his defender and get open, and he nails a three-pointer. Game over. Blazers win the series. And last night, I was telling producer Dave this. I'm trying to not watch it. I'm trying to not follow it because if I do, it's going to keep me awake. And when I went to bed, they were down by 4, which didn't make me too nervous because it seemed like for the most part of these playoffs, at least for the Blazers, even if they're down, like the third quarter is kind of really where they shine. Like Lillard went for I think 25 points in one of the third quarters in this series. Hell, he went for 36 points in the first half last night, 50 total. But last night, like also 12:30 rolls around, I wake up, kind of I'm like, all right, fine, check your phone. Look at the phone, and all I see is the headline from Bleacher Report that says Dame for the win, Blazers advance past Oklahoma City. I'm like, fuck. So I'm all, at that point I'm all jittery. Barely slept last night because of this, like an idiot. So then this morning, as I'm getting ready and brushing my teeth, I'm trying to keep quiet, but I'm also trying to watch the highlight on my phone, which is rough. But no, it was amazing. Like I'm telling you right now, if you aren't familiar with Damian Lillard, just go watch some highlights from last night's game because the guy is just insane. And now they're moving on to the next round. I got a question from Jerry. He says, who would you rather have them face, Denver or San Antonio? I'm torn on that because if it's Denver's got home court. But if it's San Antonio's always a bitch. Like you just want to I respect the hell out of San Antonio. I really like Greg Popovich. I really like that franchise. But they're just a thorn in the side. Going all the way back to Sean Elliott hitting that three-pointer to down the Blazers back in I think it was 1999. They've just always been that team. So, but then again, that could be a fool's errand because it'd be like, oh, let's just go take on Denver because Denver would be an easy out. I don't think they'd be an easy out either. It's interesting now, though, that after the Blazers went up 2-0 in the series, a lot of there's people like, oh, they could come out of the West. The Golden State Warriors are coming out of the West. Like, let's not fool anybody here. Like, the Blazers can make it as far as they want, but I honestly it's the Golden State Warriors year. Unless they're just continue to shoot themselves in the foot, the Warriors are going to win the championship yet again. Manny says they're playing without their center. Yeah, if you didn't follow this. So they still ended up as the number 3 seed. And Lillard had to play without C.J. McCollum. So their big 3 guys are Damian Lillard, C.J. McCollum, and Jusuf Nurkic. Lillard's obviously the number 1 guy. There could be a debate for who the second best is between McCollum and Nurkic. Nurkic is the center. McCollum was out for a while with a knee injury. He was able to come back, but he missed a significant stretch of time. And they've been without their center for the playoffs and for the ending of the regular season because, if you get a queasy stomach, don't go watch it. But they lost their center. It was one of those he landed and his foot kind of did one of those complete 90-degree turns where it wasn't supposed to, and he snapped both bones in his leg. So they're doing this without their starting center. And Enes Kanter, former Oklahoma City Thunder center, was released by the Knicks earlier this year. And he signs with the Blazers. He thanked them at the press conference last night. He thanked the Knicks for releasing him so that he could play in the second round of the playoffs this year. It was pretty funny that he was goofing around about that. But yeah, they're playing without their starting center. So they have their top 2 guys, but Jusuf Nurkic ain't around. But it's going to be interesting. I don't know if I can answer that question, Denver or San Antonio. My gut keeps leaning to Denver because I think the Blazers could go into Denver and steal a game. I honestly think that they could go in there, take one, and then win all their home games and win that series. Where when it comes to San Antonio, man, that's a wild card, and it's rough. San Antonio, I don't care who they've taken off their team. I don't care that Manu's not there anymore, Parker's not there anymore, Kawhi's now in Toronto. That's a damn good team. But anyway, Manny says he threw away his remote for that Sharks Knights game. Sutherland shot way later. Yeah, there's apparently a call late because that game went to overtime that people are saying that kind of hosed. I haven't seen it. I don't know what it was, but apparently that kind of hosed the whatchamacallit, the Golden Knights there. Okay, so moving on. We'll get past the Blazers talk. One of the quick things I want to jump onto here as well has to do with a league of their own. So we brought this up yesterday on the show, and is if you change one thing from a sports movie, how does that change the franchise, or how does that change the storyline? And somebody put in the Facebook chat yesterday about her not letting her bratty little sister win, and that was when Kit runs over Dottie, and Dottie drops the ball. As many times as I've seen that movie, I've never taken away from that she let her win, because of the way that it shows it, the hand comes down and it hits the ground and jars the ball loose. So I never, and there's a couple other people that said this, but as many times as I've seen it, I've never actually thought that, oh, she let her little sister win. That didn't make any sense to me, because then she's letting her entire team down. Like, I get that they're saying, oh, well, she looked over to the other dugout and Kit's over there crying and she felt bad for her. I don't believe it. I don't. And by the way, John Lovitz is absolutely brilliant in that movie when he's talking to them, and I don't want you, I want her, the one who hit the ball. You can crawl back under the cow. But that was a good thing that maybe, like, there's a couple different things that would completely change how that story is done. What if Dottie didn't refuse to go unless Kit's taken? Because John Lovitz doesn't want Kit, he wants Dottie and only Dottie. Dottie says, I'm not going unless she goes. So then they both end up going. And then there's also, what if Kit doesn't get traded? Because remember, Kit throws a fit at Dottie. She ends up getting traded mid-season, and that's it. If either one of those things don't happen, it completely changes that sports story there. But yeah, there's also another something that I got to later on, was when they're getting ready to drive to the championship game, and Tom Hanks, Jimmy Dugan, he's standing outside the bus, and these kids come up for an autograph, and he signs the baseball. When this movie came out, I had no idea what this was talking about, and then when I was an adult and I picked up on it, it's absolutely hilarious. He signs the baseball, avoid the clap, Jimmy Dugan. Basically meaning, avoid this STD, Jimmy Dugan. And the kid reads it out loud. And he goes, avoid the clap, Jimmy Dugan. And he's got this kind of confused look on his face. And then they start to ride away on their bikes. And he just yells, and he goes, hey, that's good advice. As a kid, no idea what the hell that meant. And then when I'm older, I'm like, oh my God, that's hilarious. I just told that kid to avoid the clap. But anyway, so yeah, that was kind of my thoughts on A League of Their Own. I don't think she let her sister win. It's tough for me to believe that she would let all those other people down just to let her sister win. Something other here really quick, that's not in the subject line or anything that we'll kind of talk about, was this tackle football debate, because we talked about it on the morning show, and it had to do with, should there be a minimum age limit for tackle sports? And this is rough, because some of the people, when they would talk about it, they were like, oh, well, the parents want their kids to do it, by all means, go ahead. But the problem with that is a child isn't old enough to know the consequences of actions. They aren't able to comprehend, if I do this now, this could pay back later. My buddy Josh just jumped into the YouTube chat. Nice jacket. Yeah, he got this for me. This was a birthday gift. Thanks, buddy. Rip City, baby. That's my buddy Josh. What's up, dude? So there's this debate about tackle football. And the problem, like, the kids aren't old enough to know, okay, well, if I smack my head into this thing over and over and over again, it's going to affect me later on in life, where the parents should be. And so that's where this debate comes in. Should the law have to come in to prevent this from happening, to basically say to the parents, you should know better? And for me, quite frankly, I don't care. Like, if I were to have a son, I don't think I would want him playing football. There's just too much stuff that can go down. There's other sports to play. I would push soccer, Baseball, like yes, there are obviously injuries or can happen in any of these sports, but I would push these other sports over football. And I even firmly believe that up until probably about eighth, ninth grade, that would be the age where tackling, yeah, you probably start learning how to tackle. Before that, all you really need is flag football. You're learning the game. You're learning, the process of it. And they limit it so much anyway in Pop Warner, like on punts, and like you can't block a punt, and kicks, and like there's all these other things that they do. There's absolutely no reason why you can't just make it, a flag football sport for kids that are that young. And people are like, oh, we're not moving that fast to damage their heads. Bullshit, man. These kids, when they're clanging heads together, their brain's not fully developed. It's rattling around in there like some dice and stuff. Like, I come up short saying, yes, we need a law that says it needs to be limited, but I'm really close to saying, yeah, like the children should not be playing those sports. But anyway, just wanted to touch on that really quick. Now, to the fun stories. So this is the kind of stuff that we were teasing last week. And actually it's coming up really good here because this is the 30th anniversary week of the Nintendo Game Boy. And one of the things that was really big for me when I first moved down to Florida was playing on Xbox Live. I had an Xbox before, but when I first moved there, I didn't have the internet. I didn't have cable. I was just thinking about this. When I first moved to Florida, I'm like wondering what the hell I did with my time because I didn't have anything except rabbit ears on my TV and an Xbox. That was it. I played video games was really what it was. But then once Xbox Live became a thing, it was the easiest way for me to keep in touch with my friends back home in Portland. And there's a big group of us. And the one guy, the one we're going to talk about, Frank here, Mr. Sharples Live, who's in the YouTube chat, that's how we met him. We met him, just playing Halo on the old 360. And it becomes one of those things when you start to play with somebody, and then request them as a friend, and then you just keep playing the video games and stuff. And it turned out that Frank actually became a really good friend. Where we played all the video games. We played Halo. We played Battlefield. We would play Call of Duty, but we really morphed over more into wanting to play Battlefield than Call of Duty. So it turns out as I was living in Florida. Frank was living up in northern Florida. He was up in the Tallahassee area. And then there was another friend of ours that we met again through Xbox Live. He lived kind of in between Tampa and Orlando. Both of them became really close friends. We'd go up to Halloween Horror Nights, which was fucking amazing with Frank because he's deathly afraid of zombies. And so when we would go by like the Walking Dead zone, Frank would be freaking out, which was hilarious. But hung out with them on multiple occasions. Still keep in contact with them. But as you can see, Frank is here in the YouTube chat, and he just wrote COC, baby. So here's the story behind COC. Frank, if you remember who this was, put this in the YouTube chat, because I don't remember who started it. Not the COC part, but what created it. What we did was we ended up playing Halo. And obviously the funny thing with these video games is after you killed somebody, you go teabag them. Because you click down on something and your character just kind of goes up and down like this, so it's like you're putting your balls in their face.
Kneel stand.
And I can't remember. It might have been Frank. I think he might have been the first one to do this. But as you're playing the game, you're all talking. You're in the headset, and out of nowhere we hear balls, 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 nuts in your mouth, and we're like, "What the fuck is that?" And so everybody just starts dying laughing because it's hilarious. And we look over. And they're like, you see a character over there like teabagging, and you hear balls, 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 nuts in your mouth, and we're like, oh my god. So then that kind of became our song. So anytime like you kill somebody, it was Frank. Okay, so I had a feeling it was Frank. So he started balls, 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 nuts in your mouth, and so on Xbox you can have your screen name, and then you can have like a motto or something. And I think this started with my buddy Kai first. Kai or my buddy Blair was one of the two, and I think one of them had balls, 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 nuts in your mouth as the motto, and they got pinged. Somebody complained to Xbox Live, and they got suspended for 2 days. Now, when you get suspended for something like that, all it puts up in that space, it says code of conduct
for your motto.
Uh-huh. So. And if you try to type that in, like yourself, it won't accept it. You have to get busted for code of conduct to have that up there, as your motto. So that kind of became a thing where all of a sudden, like, Kai got pinged for it, and then my buddy Blair got pinged. And so we started to notice like COC. So then that's what we started to name our group, was COC. So when you'd see our screen names, everybody's would have COC in the name. And like mine was like Goat COC, the actual letters. But then all of a sudden Xbox became the wiser for it because it looks like cock. So all of a sudden they were like, oh, well, we need to change this. So anybody who had COC in their name got the boot, got the old heave ho. So we ended up having to change different ways. So mine ended up being I've spelled out in my username COC, so it's SEEOHSEE. So that would be the COC thing, and that came from Frank. Frank actually he took a trip to Portland when I was still living in Florida. Frank had some vacation time, and he was like, you know what, let's I'll come to come hang out up there. So sure enough, he flew on up to Portland, and we got to go spend a few days hanging out with Frank up in Portland. It was super cool. But so that's really kind of the Xbox stories. Man, we need to get back into playing. I haven't played in ages. Like, it was to the point where, like, you remember those old Gangland, like Gangland, and it was a thing on like what channel? It was like USA or something, and it was just like a documentary on gangs. Okay. And then they would do like MS-13, or they would do the Hells Angels or stuff like that, and they would do all these like biker gangs and things like that. And I was gonna do a spoof Gangland episode on our shitty COC gang on Xbox Live, because the one thing it does is it has like a dossier, and it's got like the picture of them where they're like that, like it's just their mugshot, and then it's got like real name, alias, like what they're known by. So ours would be like a real name, what the like your screen name was, and like what you're known for. Because like my thing is, get the fuck out of the doorway. If you've ever played any of these games with me, it's always me yelling, get the fuck out of the doorway, because what happens is everybody starts going out, and then these fuckers stand in the doorway, and then they wonder why one grenade kills 4 people. Well, it's because you're standing in the doorway, dickbag.
Nobody Move. Can get out. Nobody can get
in. So that's mine would say Brandon Coates, screen name, and then it'd be like known for or whatever. It would say, get out of the fucking doorway. That just throwing fits in general when I think the game's cheating on me, because the games cheat against me. I swear to God, these computers are against me. But no, it was Frank said the door thing. Yeah, get out of the fucking doorway, dude. But no, like, it's like we need to get back into it, because the problem is everybody's got families now, and it's more difficult for everybody to kind of jump back online. The only games I've been able to play recently in the past year, I would occasionally pop in Elder Scrolls Online. And I would usually do that after one of our D&D sessions, because I was like, oh, I'm in that mindset. Like, I want to go, be in the world. I've thought about buying Skyrim again. I had Skyrim for the 360, and they've got it on sale. There's a dollar store next door, and they sell like used games for dirt cheap. And I've seen it there, and I've thought about getting Skyrim for the Xbox One. But I already have too many other games, and I wouldn't have time to play it. I did get to play Red Dead Redemption 2 for a while there. That game is shit. And then, one of the games that I did buy over at the dollar store was like an old FIFA. It was like FIFA 2015 or something like that. So I'll be able to play things like that. But yeah, so
you haven't gone into like Fortnite or Apex or any of the new games that are out there right now?
I downloaded Apex Legends, which is kind of the new Fortnite, I guess. And Frank knows about it. Frank says he runs Apex Legends. I downloaded. I played 2 games. And it's one of the, like, I hate playing games. Like, I used to love playing games with strange people. Now I fucking hate it. Like, it annoys me. I'm like, I want to play with people I know. But anyway, we used to be so fucking annoying, man. There was, back in Halo, Frank will remember these days. Back during the Halo days, it was, when you'd be in like what's called a lobby, and it would have like these 4 players listed here, and then these 4 players listed here, and those were the teams. And when you're in that lobby, everybody can talk to everybody. Right. And now it's to the point where you can be in a party, and you're only hearing the people that you're friends with, or only the people that are in that party, which is a lot better. But this is the reason why you have like a reputation, and people can vote whether or not they want to play with you. Like, if they want to be put in a game with you again. And our reputation just went in the shitter. because what would happen, Frank already got it, mine. He wrote it in the chat. So what would happen is we're sitting there, one of us would just go, mine. And then everybody, so we were like the seagulls from Finding Nemo, and you just hear mine, 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 mine. And when you talk, the little speaker will flash, so you can see who's doing it, and it's just the whole gamut of every mine, 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 mine. Yeah, we're just being muted, and people like hating our guts, and like when we would lose, people would talk shit about it, where they're like messaging us, like ha ha ha, that's what you get. And of course, when we would win, we would talk shit. Oh, I completely forgot. I have even more fun video game stories because there's another one that I had where we were playing Call of Duty. No, I'm sorry. We were playing Battlefield. And there was this one episode or this one level where you have kind of these like warehouses. And there's a tank inside one. And what my buddy Nick would do is he was obsessed with the tank mines. So he would run in there and he would just toss a couple of tank mines in front of it, a couple of tank mines behind it. So if anybody jumps in there and they try to get it out, tank blows up, he gets a kill. And this kid didn't fucking learn, man. This kid died like 5 times in a row trying to get this tank, and Nick is laughing his ass off. He cannot believe that this kid does this every single time because it tells you on the bottom of the screen who you killed. Then he gets one of the funniest messages we've ever heard, and he sends it to us, or he plays it for us. And it's this kid, and the kid's probably 10, 11, maybe 12. Like his voice hasn't quite changed yet. You son of a bitch! If you lay down one more goddamn tank mine, I swear to God. And this thing goes on for like 60 seconds of the kid's bitching. As we're listening to it, the kid gets back in the tank and Nick blows him up again. It's like, dude, learn your lesson. Avoid that tank, dipshit. God. Oh, we need to get back into playing games. It's such good times. But anyway, so that's kind of the video game stuff. If I think of any more, I will. Frank, you need to hit me up on Facebook or something so that we can throw down some Apex Legends here at some point. But anyway, so to wrap up this After Buzz, I got a couple of stories here that I'll talk about from my old days of living in Eugene, Oregon. And so if there's anything that you guys want brought up, by all means, bring it up in the chat. Questions, comments, whatever. But as it goes, I had a good friend of mine. He was on the morning show there in Eugene. We worked for KNRQ, and which is still there. You can Google it if you want. You can look it up. You know, most of the people I worked with are actually still there. And he's kind of bounced around, and he worked in Eugene. He went to San Francisco, and he's moved on and so forth. And he just posted on Facebook a lot of the old radio pictures. And somebody shared one from this Papa Roach show. We did a Papa Roach meet and greet. And I used to do this thing where I wouldn't be in the photos. I would just stand behind and go like that. And somebody said, I think they call me Backseat Brandon or something like that. And so like there's one point we did this like gambling night, this like casino night. We had our own money made up. So all of our faces were on different denominations of bills. And I think I still have one of mine where it's like, that's the look on my face. It's going like that. And so that was one of those stories with Papa Roach where, it's everybody else hanging out with Papa Roach and there's me in the background. I remember I picked them up from their hotel. I was the one that broke the news to them that Head had left Korn, because that news just broke that morning when they were in town, and I mentioned it to them. So that was me. I told them about that shit. And then also that night, we drank all their beer. That's the Papa Roach story. I'll leave it at that for now, because that's a story that I'm going to bring up in a future episode of Rockstar 101 with Shim. We'll talk about that. But yeah, there was a night where we drank Papa Roach's beer. I'm not going to lie. But another story that I kind of teased last week, we were all mid to early 20s when we were there working. It was my buddy Icky. He was the one that worked for the morning show. A good friend of ours, Justin. He actually won a contest. I can't remember what he was doing before, but he won a contest to be on the radio, to actually get his own radio show. And he's gone on to go do amazing things. Like he went from Eugene, he's been in Seattle, and he's turned it into a really nice career. And he's amazing on the air. He's incredibly smart, incredibly witty, incredibly funny. So we were all hanging out, and this is my 25th birthday. So it's St. Patrick's Day, 2005. We hosted a thing at this one bar. I can't remember the name of the bar at this point. But man, I got fucked up. like the owner, and we were always told, at least, and different radio stations have different policies. If somebody hands you a drink, obviously be wary of it. But if somebody's willing to buy you a drink, accept it graciously, or turn it down graciously, whichever you want. I mean, obviously, if you're not drinking, then don't feel forced. But control yourself and don't be a maniac. I did not control myself. I was a maniac that night. But for the actual gig, so I was getting paid to host this party, and I don't even remember what the hell the party. It was like a wet T-shirt contest or something like that. But even before that, like when I'm there, the owner of the bar, he's like, put your back up against the wall. So I'm like this. He goes, tilt your head back. I tilt my head back, and he just starts pouring Bushmills down my throat, like, and I mean a lot of Bushmills. And I remember as I was driving into work, so I wasn't supposed to go into work the following morning. We'll get to that here in a moment of why I had to go in. But as I'm driving in, I heard Vinny and Icky. That was the morning show at the time. I heard Vinny and Icky talking about it. And Vinny asked Icky, he's like, how was Brandon last night? Because we know that he was hosting this event. But, it was also his birthday. And Icky said, and I quote, I can't believe Brandon made it through the night. And he did well for what he went through, because that owner of that bar got me hammered. I still hosted the gig. I still did I still did my job. I still did that. But ultimately I ended up getting written up because, I mean, I'll be completely honest. Like, I got hammered. Like, I did. Like, the owner of the bar got me hammered. Like, that was kind of my saving grace there. But there was a sales lady there, and I'm not gonna name a name or anything, but I'm gonna totally throw her ass under the bus because she had a stack of tickets that she wanted me to give away for a different event that was on the same night as when this bar had an event going on. I'm like, I'm not giving those tickets out here. Like, I don't give a fuck what you say. I'm not doing that because it's contradictory to what they want. We're at their bar. I'm not giving tickets to something that's competing on the same night as something they have going on. And she just refused to listen to it. And she ended up losing like 50 tickets, like a stack of tickets. They fell out of her fucking pocket. She lost them. She went and complained to the GM the next day to say that I was drunk and wouldn't listen to her, and I lost the tickets. When everybody else backed me up, and they're like, no, she was almost as drunk as you were, and she lost the goddamn tickets. And I'm like, ah, ha, ha. And, oh, God. So Josh is saying worse than Flaming DP night. Close. That'll be a good tease for another day. But yeah, so, so I got written up. I had to drive into work. I had to sign, like, my boss, Al Scott is the man. Like, he's the guy that still runs that station. That dude was awesome. I loved working for that guy. He was the one that when I got the job offer in Miami and I told him about it, they countered to be like, hey, we'll up our offer. We'll up your salary too. Here's the responsibilities that we'll give you. Those are the things. And ultimately I took the Miami job. And he told me afterwards too. He pulled me aside and he goes, I'm glad you took that job because if you didn't, I was going to smack the shit out of you. He goes, one of the things that I regret is that I spent too much time in Portland and I didn't take one of those opportunities. He goes, get the fuck to Miami and go live life. Go see something else. So the dude was awesome. And he told me flat out as I'm signing the paper, he goes, I got to hold on to this thing for a month. I'm throwing it away after that. You can do whatever you want with yours. And I was like, well, I'm going to frame it. Wow. So I might have it laying around somewhere. I'm not quite sure if I do or not. But so that's not even the main part of the story. That's just a really roundabout way for me to get to this main part of the story. And that's why. So like my buddy Josh, the one who gave me this jacket, as he says here in the YouTube chat about how worse than Flaming DP night. There was a night where Flaming Dr. Pepper's, woo, doggy. That's for another day. But that same bar, actually, no, it was the night before my birthday. We were at that bar the night before as well, and they made me a Flaming Dr. Pepper. And the guy told me, he goes, normally we don't let you guys dunk it or anything. Like, we'll light it on fire, but we have to drop it because of safety concerns. But I trust you. Just don't burn my bar down. I lit my fucking hand on fire. I lit the bar on fire. I wasn't even drunk. Like, truly, like, he gave me that. I wasn't even drunk that night yet. I truly, like, that was it. I just dropped it in. I drank, and, like, everything was on fire. And that was the first drink I had all night. So I should have known that this was going to be a crazy birthday. So ultimately, it's me, my buddy Icky, and our buddy Justin. And we're driving back to, like, Icky's going to go drive me back to my house. I think he's dropping Justin off as well because I think Justin was staying at my place. Icky wasn't going to drink because he had to be up for the morning show the next day. So me and Justin were like, cool, like, designated driver. So I'm on cloud nine. I'm hammered, and I've got my my jacket on, the one I talked about last week, where it was meant to look like an FBI jacket, but it said NRQ right here with GOAT on it for my name, and then it had big NRQ letters on the back. So we end up in a Jack in the Box drive-through, and the way that the drive-through works is that you're right here, and it kind of does like a U. So you order here, you pull forward, you turn right, it goes this way a little bit, and then you turn right back around, and then this is the window, and then you head back out that way because the street is behind you here. And I'm sitting there, and I don't even know how the fuck I came up with the idea, but I go, I'm gonna moon all these bitches, and because it's completely full. Like there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like 7 or 8 cars maybe sitting there. And so I start to unbuckle and I'm getting going, and and all of a sudden like, wait, no, and I'm like, no, man, I'm gonna do it. And they're like, no, we're not telling you not to do it. Take your jacket off, dude, because you've got the station call letters on your jacket. So I'm like, okay, so I take the jacket off. I get out there. I drop trowel. So my bare ass is hanging out, and I'm dancing around. I'm like, woo! I'm like slapping my ass, like, woo! There's people honking their horns. Like, there's a person over here being like, yeah, go, dude. There's somebody over here going, put your ass, like fucking yelling at me and stuff. And like just fucking nuts. So we get there. So like I'm doing that whole thing, and then while this is happening, they pull up to the drive-through, and once they get there, the person who's working the Jack in the Box thing, they say, sorry, we can't serve you. Your friend who's mooning everybody just cost you your food. And we're like, fuck. So we got kicked out of Jack in the Box. So I'm running back to the car, trying to pull my pants up, big pasty ass hanging out. So I get into the car, and then we ended up having to have Taco Bell that night. So, and that was why we were forever banned from that Jack in the Box in Eugene, Oregon. So yeah, so it was a pretty crazy night. Not gonna lie, it's pretty fun. Let me see here. Okay, so Mandy's asking, what brought me to El Paso? I've talked about this a couple times. There was basically when I worked in Florida, it was for Kevin, because I had met Kevin. Like, I'll try to get through this as quickly as possible because I know that some people have heard it, but it's a pretty long story. But I gave my demo and resume to this one guy when I was in college. He knew a guy that worked for this company called Cox Radio. And when he sent it to him, he liked it. And so he sent it to this guy by the name of Kevin Vargas, our boss here. At the time, Kevin was in San Antonio. He liked what he heard. And for the longest time, he was trying to get me to work for him in Cox Radio. Ultimately, I ended up in Miami with Kevin. That station got blown up. Kevin ended up in Houston. I stayed in Miami. He got blown out of Houston. Ultimately ends up here in El Paso. Back in 2012, I get let go in Florida. I wasn't even home yet after getting laid off, and he was calling me asking me if I wanted to come work for him. So I'm basically here because of Kevin, because he wanted me to come work for him here in this dusty little town, as you call it. But anyway, that's another lengthy afterbuzz here. Good Lord, good golly. I talk way too damn much. You guys put up way too much of my crap, by the way. You guys need to tell me to shut up. Or tell me to keep going. I really don't care. But anyway, big thanks to producer Dave today, because he's really hooking it up. All this, the images and everything else that you're seeing, that's all him. I have nothing to do with that. Like, that dude. And by the way, he's doing this for free. Like, I haven't even asked him to do it. He just comes in, busts his ass. We need more people like producer Dave. But yeah, so give him a big round of applause. Coming up next week, maybe the Flaming DP story. I'm not really sure. That one's a pretty crazy story. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else I can tease for next week, but I might have to just leave it at that.
Some Game of Thrones talk.
That will definitely have Game of Thrones talk. Oh, and next week. So here's what's probably going to happen with Avengers Endgame. We generally give at least a week when it comes to spoilers on the air, because we realize that there's going to be a lot of people who probably want to see it this weekend. They're just not going to be able to. And they're not going to want spoilers. So we usually give it like a week, before we start really talking about it. But next week on the AfterBuzz, I'm depending on the amount of people. If the majority of people don't care, then I will say spoilers. And, if you want to, you can just kind of go, piss off, I guess. I don't know. Just watch it later, I guess, after you've seen Avengers. But if most of the people are like, no, we don't want spoilers, then I won't talk about it. Like, it's kind of dependent on you guys. We'll have to take a vote coming up next Wednesday. So maybe yes or no spoilers on Avengers Endgame, but we'll definitely talk some more Game of Thrones stuff there next week. And Manny says, I just thought you hated DJ Khaled that much. You ended up here. Man, I'm telling you, dude, that guy, God, it drives me nuts because everybody's like, oh, he's such a great guy. He's such a nice guy. He's so cool to be around. I'm like, every time I was around that guy, he was a dick. Like, I brought this up on Rockstar 101, which, by the way, if you don't subscribe to it, go subscribe to it because, Shim and I really want that thing to take off. So go subscribe to Rockstar 101, download it, listen to it, all that fun stuff. But what bothers me, it's the same story that I have with like Nikki Sixx. Everybody's got like, has a bad day. Okay, that's fine. If you're gonna be a dick, yeah, it's not the absolute end of the world. But if it happens on a regular basis, which is what happened with Nikki Sixx, anytime I was involved in an interview with that guy, he was just a dick. And the same thing with DJ Khaled. And that's why it's so much fun for me to laugh at how much he pisses with his pants all the way on the ground because the guy was just a jerk. They always I'm not gonna get into it. He's an asshole. I just don't like that guy. But yeah. So anyway, if you guys have anything else that you guys would like to bring up, you got like 30 seconds here while I am wrapping this thing up. Make sure you guys are subscribing, hitting the like button. You guys are hitting the bell so you get the notifications for when we go live. I take it back. I went long on purpose today because we didn't go short last week. We were supposed to, but we didn't. Fuck, I talk too much, man. I'm telling you right now. I'm talking too damn much. But yeah, so if you want, producer Dave just put the link to the podcast right there in the YouTube chat if you want to click it. That's for the Apple version. It is available on Google Podcasts as well. It's also available on Spotify. We like to push the Spotify one because what we like is that if you're going and listening to the music, or if you're listening to the podcast, you can switch right over and go listen to Shim's music as well. Javi is saying, could Bran be the Night King? That's one of the rumors in Game of Thrones, that Bran is the Night King. But the one thing that Bran brought up where he was like, he's going to come for me, because I guess whoever the three-eyed raven is, pretty consistently has the Night King, coming after them because that's who he wants to attack, because that's the one who has all the memories of everything and who can see everything. So who knows? But it's going to be awesome. Avengers tomorrow night. Game of Thrones coming up on Sunday. Avengers again on Saturday. It's going to be an amazing weekend. I'd like to thank everybody for coming and hanging out, especially Josh. Thanks for popping in. Thanks for the jacket. When did you give this to me? Like 4 or 5 years ago, I think. It's getting some work now. Tell you that, buddy. Go Blazers. Frank, thanks for popping in as well. We need to hit up with some Apex Legends. Everybody else who's always here, appreciate you guys. Could not be doing this thing without you. Be sure you share it and spread this thing as much as you guys can. So that they can listen to me ramble for 40 minutes about almost nothing. Right, Producer Dave? I'll talk about anything important, right?
Everything.
Absolutely nothing at all. All right. On that note, have yourselves a great Wednesday. We'll see you again for the next week's AfterBuzz at 10:30 Mountain Time. And more importantly, tomorrow morning, bright and early, 5 a.m. Mountain Time for Buzz Adams Morning Show.